continue shining the light on corruption. I'm joined now by African Transformation Movement National Spokesperson Sibusiso Mncwabe. He's going to talk a little bit more about their view of the president's performance. Sibu, good evening, and thank you very much for your time tonight. Now, in February or so, you brought forward a motion of no confidence against the president. That was before we were hit by the pandemic. And of course, following that, we went into the state of national disaster, and we saw how the president has been handling that, but also the issues around corruption. Now, Ask Africa says in the survey that they conducted, 68% of the citizens believed that there was more corruption evident in South Africa now compared to previous years. What is your sentiment?
Well, thank you very much for Thabo. Greetings to you and the viewers. It's correct that even before this pandemic period, we brought forward in Parliament a motion of no confidence on the president of the country. You will recall at that time that there was a big problem in our SOEs, state-owned enterprises, and the president could not handle that situation. You will recall at some stage he had to cancel a trip in Egypt to come back to the country and tell us that someone has sabotaged ESCOM, something like that. We don't even know who is that case now. But coming to this now on the pandemic era, the first day he addressed the nation regarding the funds that he required to fight the pandemic, he promised us as a nation that there will be no corruption. These funds will be handled carefully. It will be used for the intended purpose. That was his promise in his first address. But what we saw after that was terrible. There are some allegations, in fact, in each and every province, let alone that in his own office as well. There was this thing, you know what happened regarding his spokesperson. Yeah. And all this emphasize our point that the current president can't lead us any further. It has been shown by the widespread of allegations regarding the funds which were supposed to be used to save the lives of our people. People have been critically ill, people have died, but there were people who were so courageous to steal those funds. And some of them were very close to the president. All these things really, according to us, makes a president a very weak leader as a head of the state.
Now, the president addressing the Q&A session in Parliament last week, he said something very interesting around why law enforcement agencies have not arrested people. He says, well, once you have a president that can direct law enforcement agencies to arrest certain people, then you must be worried, because that would mean there is no democracy. President says, I have signed all I need to sign. I have put measures in place. I have engaged the Auditor General. I have engaged Treasury. They have, at the outset of our response to the pandemic, ensured that they put preventative measures around emergency procurement, that it was fair, that it was transparent, that it was competitive and cost effective. What more do you think the President could have done?
Well, firstly, Thabo, that's a very embarrassing statement from the commander-in-chief of the country, from the heads of state, who got the courage to say, I've tried my best, but however, these things carried on. Then the next question would be, why people are not fired? Why those who are in charge should be implementing what we have signed? They are not doing this thing. And it's like saying, I've told these kids not to make noise. However, they continue making noise. It's a very unwise, so to speak, strategy, unwise statement from the head of state.
No, we are governed by labor laws in this country, so you don't just fire people willy-nilly without due process. We've seen today the Auditor General issuing a report around the UIF and the graft that went on there at the Department of Labor. And now we know that senior officials have been suspended, including the commissioner himself.
You see, if your statement is correct, we are governed by the laws, by the labor relation, by the labor law, and other related legislations. But it says as well, those who are not performing Poor work performance is another ground for dismissal. Without following the rules, because remember, we are facing a national state of disaster. It's not business as usual. It's not something that is common to us. It's a period of disaster, and the lives of the citizens are in danger. You have to act as the commander-in-chief of the state, and you come up with such statements. We do not believe that that kind of statement inspires confidence from someone who is supposed to be the head of the country. Because remember, when he declares the national state of disaster, in his first address to the nation, he took us to his confidence. He promised us all these things, that this won't be tolerated. We are going to prioritize the lives. That is why we had the lockdown, because the lives had to be prioritized. Lives has to be saved. But what happens after that really shows that he wasn't really ready himself to handle such a critical period in the country, which makes him, I'm running short of words, a very weak president.
Okay, explain to me then how would you characterize this situation where officials would leave a tried and tested service provider in their system and go for a fly-by-night entrepreneur? We heard of people who actually registered companies 2 weeks before they even got contracts. Others were running garages. Others were running, gardening service, but car washes. But they were given PPE contracts. How do you explain that and link it to what you are saying is the weakness of the president?
Those who are doing these things are not taking the commander-in-chief serious. That is the simple explanation. They are not taking the president, they've never really taken the president serious. Because if they took the president serious, if they knew that what the president says will happen, people will be arrested, people will be retrenched, people will be dismissed, they were not going to do this thing. We've got a problem in this country where people will be in suspension forever. They will continue to get bonuses, get paid, have their nice houses, their nice cars, whereas they've committed serious, there are serious allegations. Cases will go on and on and on. That's the nature of the administration we had. So people knew that no one will take a knock on the entire saga. That is why they continue to do these things. And if the people who are employed by the state do not take the president serious when he speaks, it means that there's no one then who can take the president serious.
Talk to me then.
If the president can't enforce his powers, if the leader can't enforce his powers to those who have been employed by the state, and even closer to him, then it really renders him spineless.
How about law enforcement agencies, particularly the SIU, who have acted without fear or favor? They have conducted investigations, including investigating those who are in the president's office. The spokesperson, which you have mentioned, the husband, and that contract was investigated. The DP in the presidency and that contract that she got in Limpopo of PPEs, that is being investigated. The SG of the ANC's son's contract is also being investigated. Other NEC members, all those issues are being investigated. Does that show a president who is willing to be hands-on in dealing with corruption?
You are correct, Thabo. All these incidents are being investigated. What are the outcomes? Out of all these, no one has been really arrested. No one is behind the bars. No one is up and down going to court. It's all a variety of investigations in all provinces, implicated departments, implicated individuals, but there's nothing that gives the citizens confidence to say, oh, here's Mr. Mdluli, he's going to court tomorrow. Oh no, so-and-so has been arrested, so-and-so has been sentenced. There's none. In fact, to say there are some investigations, according to us, it's a way to silence the people. Don't make noise, I'm dealing with them. But what's the gist? What are the outcomes of these investigations? We haven't seen any.